Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's AI news for Still Team Human on July 28, 2026. The AI story of the last few days, at least when scanning the headlines when you do a Google search, is all about education and artificial intelligence. There are two fronts to consider in this discussion: K through 12 and higher education, including undergraduate and master's programs. And there has been a raging debate among educators across the board and around the world about how to best use AI in teaching. It feels like no headway has been made, to be honest, and I've written about my position on the Still Team Human blog. You can check that out on Substack. Basically, I believe we need to be smart about deploying AI and protective of our children at every age and education level. However, we cannot prohibit AI use altogether because we risk that future generation is going to fall behind competitors in other countries and even internally. They must be competitive for the job market, and AI is here to stay, whether we like it or not. They need to know how to use it responsibly, and it's our job and our teachers' jobs to inform them and get them ready for this very near future and the job market that they're going to be facing. Okay, so let's turn to my old school notebook to get a glimpse at the relevant headlines. Apologies if I'm not looking directly at the camera, but I did take some notes on what I read, and I want to make sure I share everything with you accurately. So, first of all, New York's largest teachers union is urging, this is a quote, urging state officials to establish broad safeguards governing AI in schools, particularly the use of humanoid robots designed to mimic human relationships. This is according to CNY Central. And apparently, this discussion, this debate became an issue after a Western New York district abandoned its plans to introduce Sally, a humanoid robot that would be teaching in the school district in the fall. So they've done away with Sally, and upon further reading of the article, I learned it was because of the concerns that parents and teachers had, and there was a big uproar. And what people are arguing now is that we saw how this was a very contentious issue, and there are no regulations, guidelines, or rules made by the governing bodies, by the government itself, and therefore it's an issue that we should take a look at. The next headline was a little different. This one was from the Baltimore Banner, and it shared an article about how Maryland colleges are adding artificial intelligence majors to their offered curriculum. This has been a big trend. As someone who covers business schools, I've also heard a lot about particular classes that are being offered. The article's writers shared research by Carla Bradley, the Dean of Inclusive Computing at Northeastern University, in which she learned that there's been a 36% increase in AI majors at universities across the United States. That's a pretty big jump, 36%. And we also know that students are already using AI extensively. The writer happened to share that the 2026 Lamina Foundation Gallup study found that 57% of students use AI in their coursework weekly, and 1 in 5 use it daily. That's a stat that's been going around a lot lately. It's very well known to journalists who are covering artificial intelligence. Now, what was interesting about that article is that one of the experts quoted was suggesting that yes, we should be studying AI, but perhaps it's too narrow a focus to have it as a major all by itself, and it should be incorporated into computer science majors, for example. I thought that was a very good point. Uh, the major of AI, of course, would be a very niche major. And the argument was that you're not getting a greater understanding of where this fits in, where this particular tool fits in. And this is where I tend to lean, simply because I believe we should see it as a tool and not as, something more than that. I think we have to frame it in that lens so that people realize the benefits of having humans over machines. It is our tool. We are the leaders still. Anyway, the third and final headline I'm going to share was from Texas A&M University. It announced it is joining the Genesis mission, a historic national initiative led by the U.S. Department of Energy. That is how it is described in the article. And it is also meant to innovate in energy, scientific discovery, national security through a platform that combines AI, supercomputing, quantum systems, and advanced scientific instruments. I hope to do some coverage of quantum computing in the coming days, so please stay tuned for that. In the meantime, the point of sharing this is that clearly AI is becoming a big topic for research, and it has both academic and practical functions, this research. And clearly, the United States is making an effort to use AI to put itself in the forefront of leadership when it comes to science and technology. Certainly, we've been among the leaders. There is competition from China, however, I'm sure, and it's nothing to sneeze at, and I'm sure that plays a role in groups like this. Now, to combine all of three headlines and get at what I'd like us to get at is education is grappling with how it's going to be deploying artificial intelligence, what it means for the future of education, and what we need to share with today's students who are going to be tomorrow's leaders and workers. And so I leave you with a couple of things that I think we should all think about. And this is something that comes up in the AI Constitution also. Where are we going to draw the line about what humans do and what AI does? Clearly, people had a problem with the humanoid robot becoming the teacher for the students. Now, is that necessarily a prohibition that we should never have the teacher be a robot? I'm not sure. It depends on how we, you know, build a structure around it, what that looks like, and whether this robot is going to actually replace a human being or be an addendum to a human being. That makes a big difference. And also how the robots function. They're very advanced. You may have seen some at many of these tech conferences. There have been some really unbelievable ones shown in a conference in China and a few here in the United States as well. However, they're still rudimentary when it comes to serving as a human, at least as far as I have seen. There are still problems and testing that needs to be done. And I think we just need more information about it. I think the research efforts are commendable. I think we have to keep researching, keep deploying the AI to make advancements. That is the biggest benefit of artificial intelligence. We can solve big problems probably with AI once it's advances even further than it already has. And I commend all of the universities for trying to stay on top of that. A lot of times, institutions of higher learning, especially, are slow to these movements. And you might say they have been because things are rapidly moving. However, I think that these kinds of missions, whoever's handling them and overseeing them in this group, whether it's the government or the universities in partnership with the government, are meaningful efforts that should be commended and continued. There's no harm in researching. There's no harm in researching. That's how we learn. And finally, I think I agree with the professor who was talking about the fact that we need to maybe not major in AI, but have a greater major in which there are classes on artificial intelligence. We run the risk of becoming too niche. And in this particular case, they were really highlighting one particular major out of Maryland in which you would be talking about how to remove bias from artificial intelligence. And while I think that is a very important part of the job we have to do now to ensure that we stay in a people-centered world, at people-centered jobs, I do think that it might be too niche for employment after college. And that's been a very big issue for people. How am I going to get a return on investment when college is so expensive and you just don't reap the same rewards after school? And that kind of major makes it very difficult to reap those rewards. It would be better served as classwork and as a part of a bigger program that would broaden your skill set and broaden your knowledge and make you more uh, ready for whatever lies ahead in the workforce. Those are my 2 cents. I'd love to hear what all of you think, and we'll be back tomorrow with the next Today's AI news. See you then.